for you. What did you think of Slaysian Royale's latest episode? Do you have thoughts? Do you have comments? Do you have violent reactions? Well, I'm sure you do. And I do as well. But aside from that, I'm going to explain a lot of the Filipino references on this episode because it's time for Dragsplaining Philippines. What is up, everybody? You're hanging out with me, Momo, as I sit here and chat with you all about the latest episode of Drag Race Philippines Slaysian Royale. And we are at episode 4. And let me just get this out of the way. It feels like there weren't a lot of Filipino references this episode, not as packed as the previous ones, because it feels like this time they did want to go a more general Asian route, which I also live for. But don't you worry, it's not like I'm not going to talk about the happenings in the episode. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep chatting, and I'm going to share you my episode 4 thoughts. As per usual, the ladies walk back into the workroom after an elimination, and this time it was when they had to say goodbye to Ivory Glaze, who I find to be one of the most gorgeous creatures on the planet. Unfortunately, she was sent home last week, and her being sent home triggered a lot of conversation amongst the queens. In the workroom, one of my favorites was this tense moment with regards to how they were all gonna go about choosing who to send home.
That was super difficult to me because I love you both. I choose Arizona.
Well, of course, we all know that Venus Deluxe ended up choosing Ivory's lipstick to give her the karate chop, while Kitty, on the other hand, this gagged me because she picked Arizona Brandy's lipstick. And so even for us as the audience, this is going to stir a lot of questions in our minds. How are they going to pick lipsticks from here on out? Because Kitty was like, well, I'm loyal to my friends and I feel like I can't send a friend home. And so I picked Arizona's lipstick. It did seem like that went over well with Arizona, but it really does seem like at the back of her mind, she is going to take note of that, because are we going to go with track record or are we going to go with friendships? Well, the end of this episode actually answers that question for all of us. Honestly, for me, I always think about track record as a primary thing to look at in this scenario. I feel like if you really did bad at this episode and you had to go home because of how bad you did, or throughout your run, if it's been 3, 4, 5 episodes and you were still kind of finding your footing, then yeah, you deserve to go home. But I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I don't know. I feel like these queens probably take it on a day-to-day basis and they do whatever feels right in the moment. And that's why you have the variety of choices of like queens picking based on relationships, but some just base it on purely track record. The beauty of this format is that we just never know. Now, of course, all the queens had to move on. It was a new day in the workroom. They still had to have a little bit of conversation about what truly happened, about, what the choices were last week. But the more exciting part is that Mama Pao enters the workroom. And Mama Pao will always show up looking amazing with a fabulous outfit. And I feel like that's become a ritual now where they chant every time Mama Pao comes in. Mama Pao! Mama Pao! Mama Pao! That's a very Filipino thing, especially when we have a friend and it's their birthday and we get to the location or wherever, we start chanting. Or if you look good, we're definitely gonna dance and sing because you look really good. So I hope these international queens are picking up a thing or two about the culture. But the more important thing is Mama Pao announcing the mini challenge. By the way, another Filipino nugget, they used the word auspicious. And of course, that elicited the reaction from all the other queens. Auspicious!
Who's feeling lucky and auspicious? Auspicious!
Now, if you're a new viewer and you still don't understand what that is, look back to our very first episode right out the gate. We explain it here on Dragsplaining. But let's move on to another part of Mama Pao's appearance because she announces the mini challenge. They mentioned Bingo Plus as, I guess, the sponsor of this mini challenge. And full disclosure, if you're not Filipino, I feel like you have to understand the controversy surrounding not just Bingo Plus, but gambling platforms that are very prevalent right now in the Philippines. There's a lot of debate about its legitimacy or at least how it's been normalized in society because it is gambling, and culturally in the Philippines, we don't see gambling as, one of the best pastimes. The government actually just recently mandated all the banks and wallets here in this country to unlink to those apps because they're trying to, I guess, curb the popularity of such a controversial activity.
We have a problem. We have a crisis. We are facing crisis, Mr. BSP, sir.
So there is that. That's the situation. So have you been noticing, not just Drag Race Philippines, a lot of Filipino brands, a lot of Filipino programs, a lot of content here in the Philippines sometimes have these gambling apps as their sponsors. And that does get some criticism from the community. Just putting it out there. Clearly, it wasn't talked about on the show, but if I just wanted to make sure that you guys who aren't Filipino, who stumble upon certain types of messages about it, you guys know what is going on. Now, Bingo Plus is the sponsor for this mini challenge, and I'm not really familiar with the platform. So I'm assuming that the game that they played for the mini challenge is inspired by one of the games there, but also it's actually a very familiar Peria game. So we actually explained what Peria is in the previous season, but Peria is like a fair, like a city fair in the Philippines. I guess it's kind of like a traveling fair, but one of the things to do there is go to the booths, and it is gambling. So there is a booth that is about dropping a ball on a certain color, and you place bets on what color you think that ball's going to drop on. And it was actually kind of sad because it ended so quickly for a lot of the queens. And I know that there are 9 queens left, but I felt like they could have switched up the mechanic to be a little bit more, to extend the game a little bit. Because Kep Kep Bube was so fun and it went on for a while. I was expecting that energy in this mini challenge. We didn't get it that much. You know what? At the end of the day, all the queens seemed to have fun and I enjoyed watching them. Plus, I do like seeing the pit crew once in a while. And eventually, we get CM Pussy as the winner of this mini challenge. Just like always, the win for the mini challenge gives the winning queen some sort of an advantage. So CM did get one, and she used it for the Maxi challenge, which Mama Pao promptly announces. This week's Maxi challenge is the all-important Rusical. And for Slaysian Royale, of course, the Rusical is entitled Crazy Bitch Slaysians. What a fun idea. But you know what's not fun? CM Pussy's prize was basically taking away the power to choose of one of the queens because CM has to pick a queen to basically get the last pick. So whatever the scraps are in terms of picking your Rusical role, that's what you get. And you know who CM picks? It's of course the queen with 2 Rue badges, Venus Deluxe. Shocking? Not at all. Not at all. Obviously, that choice made sense. If anything, that's the easiest route to go because you're really not stepping on too many toes at that point. You don't want to upset other queens in terms of if it's strategy, for example, you don't really want to upset other queens. And I know that the Filipino queens are playing the game. If a Filipino queen won that challenge and had that choice, they were probably going to pick another international queen. Now we're moving on to one of my favorite parts of any Drag Race season is casting the Rusical. It's always filled with very interesting moments. It's super funny when they started enumerating the roles for this challenge because they were all Asian stereotypes like cooking or martial arts, stuff like that. I really lived for that. Now, in terms of the names, I know that all the names are super funny, but I'm actually not sure if there were a lot of Filipino puns inserted in there. The only one that I caught was Lintek Lee, because in Tagalog, Lintek is a pejorative expression when you're shocked or something bad happens. And its literal translation, I believe, is lightning. So I really didn't catch anything when I was reading all the names aside from Lintek Lee. But if you guys are from all the other countries that were being referenced, maybe let us know in the comments. Because I do want to learn also what else they snuck in there because this is such an Asian episode. I would love to know. assigning the roles is always going to be contentious for these shady drag queens. And of course, Brigading went big and chose the lead. Now, historically, picking the lead could be a good thing or a bad thing. So that was really risky for Brigading to do. But I feel like another risky choice is taking on like a role like the villain. And I feel like that's what Siam Pussy ended up with. I feel like out of the list of the exes of the groom, it was the most villainous. And so I feel like also that was the Asian stereotype that was Filipino coded, because like she was dramatic. It was very like, because it was dramatic, you know, I felt like that was the Filipino character. And so it was going to require a lot of drama. So another big choice. And then I also love that we get the auditions because multiple queens wanted the same role. Like for the role of Michelle Yomask, who is the mother who doesn't like, you know, the bride. I love that Suki and Hyua auditioned for the role. I feel like that was really Suki very clearly, although that was a good try from Hyua. Hyua then again had to audition because her and Arizona wanted Tammy Tech. And I will say Hyua did kill that. So Hyua ended up getting that role too. Good for you, girl. And I was a little scared for Arizona because like I feel like that's a bad situation to not really get the role that you want. But I mean, we all know how it turned out for Arizona. But in the context of picking a role, that is a problem. But of course, it's Arizona Brandy. She's going to turn things around. And she was eyeing the chef role, Lee Cum Queen. That was Kitty's original role. And I don't know, for some reason, she was able to convince Kitty to give up that role. I think that maybe Kitty felt like she needed to give that role to Arizona just to like maybe atone for what she had done last week. But as we've learned, that was not the best decision to make. But that's why I really love when Rusicals happen and they have to cast themselves, because you get all these layers of drama. So now we move on to the rehearsals, and it was a very quick moment in the episode, but I love seeing Teacher Cecil. Now we've already done a Dragsplaining for last season's Rusical, and in there we already talked about how important Teacher Cecil is in the theater community here in the Philippines. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead. And she's the same. Fabulous, giving really good notes. And I know that she's pushing these queens to be their very best. And I hope the international queens really learn something from her. Although at this point, I was starting to get nervous for certain queens. And then we go and move on to them preparing for the Rusical, where we had that very vulnerable moment from Brigading. And I was actually also wondering, because after season 1, a lot of the season 1 queens went to DragCon in LA. And I remember wondering why some of the queens weren't there. Brigading was one of them. I was watching a lot of the panels. I was looking at the runways. Everyone was there except her. And now I know that she had like, I guess, immigration issues or something. Very sad, but also very interesting. I would love for Brigading to talk about that more, especially because of the immigration conversations happening, not just in the US, actually all over the world. But yeah, she went through a lot. As Vina said, she had really bad fortune during those times. And I'm glad that she is now on Slaysian Royale. But you know what? Outside of this show even, she's really had a great career in the Philippines before Drag Race. And now she has a really great podcast. And yeah, I just love seeing a really talented queen like Brigading being able to like rein it all in again and perform at her best. And then it's time to be on the runway because the Rusical is going to happen. But before that, Mama Pao did give us an amazing look. And that headdress is, well, she did mention it in the episode. The headdress was for, I guess it was referencing lavanderas. Now, a lavandera is someone whose job is to do laundry. And the thing on Mama Pao's head is basically a batcha, which is the water container where you do your laundry manually. Looked great on her. And I also love that all 3 judges this episode were very coordinated. Never seen that happen ever. Love, love, love it. It is now time for the Rusical, and I actually loved it. Now, this is going to sound bad because I expected a lot less. I was really nervous, but specifically because a lot of these queens had, challenging runs on their seasons. I was like, should we expect from these queens? But I actually was so surprised at how fun the entire thing was. The songs were amazing. And all the queens, as much as there were performances that were less than stellar, I think that generally the show is amazing. So obviously all these queens are super talented, but also kudos to teacher Cecil. That choreography was amazing. Now I'm gonna go to my favorite performances of the Rusical. And I will say, I did not understand the results of the judging because I really thought that the top two for this Rusical was Kiana and Suki Doll. I think they were the ones who I felt like really gave something to the character. But obviously I'm not a judge. I wasn't there when they filmed this. So I don't know, but as the audience watching it now, I thought that Suki Doll, with the matronly energy and that amazing lip sync, she was super villainous. It was really effective. And then you had Kiana, who we all know Kiana as an amazing performer, right? But there was so much given, especially because that was a martial arts thing and that was her brand. I was like, of course Kiana's going to do that. But like, she was also so funny about it. So in my mind, this is clearly Kiana and Suki Doll. And so when Mama Pao announced who the top two was, I was a little gagged. Not that I wasn't super impressed by Brigading and Arizona Brandy. I think they also did amazing. But I don't know, as a viewer, it was really Suki and Kiana for me. I don't know if maybe the Runway had something to do with it, but like if that was the case, then I think Suki was clearly number one this episode. I feel like she was number one on the Runway for me. Suki Doll's Runway was crazy. But honestly, generally this episode, the runways were amazing. Save for the substance references, which I get it. It's tough. It's really hard. Now, for those that I didn't really like too much, I did feel like CM could have given a lot more. I think based on what I know about the characters watching the episode, that Asian stereotype I think was supposed to be the Filipina character, right? And so there should have been a lot more passion and drama. And I felt like CM didn't live up to that, which is sad because CM is so talented. And I don't know if like this season she's getting in her head or like if she just came off of her Thailand season, and I don't know, but like I felt like she could do so much better than that. Then Bernie, I love Bernie. And if you guys have seen her viral clips of performing in O-Bar or wherever, she's an amazing performer. And that I think was her curse. Because when you're that level of a performer, I think sometimes you make the mistake of just giving that. Because I agree with the judges. I saw a Bernie that was an amazing performer, but I didn't see the character. Where was Doja Park in that? And I feel like when it comes to the Rusical, and not that I'm a theater actor or whatever, I know nothing about that universe, but just watching almost all the iterations of Drag Race, Rusicals call for a characterization, and Bernie didn't deliver that, which is sad because she did perform amazing. Like she danced well, she lip synced well. I just think that it was missing the character. But as I said, overall, the Rusical was actually great. So I felt like this was one of the episodes where sending someone home was really going to be sad. And then we go to the Runway, which made it even more sad because I feel like all of the runways were amazing. As I've said, Suki Dolls was amazing. Brigading's was amazing. I couldn't even tell which one was really her. Arizona's faces were super realistic. And the judges said it. It was so realistic. It was almost creepy. It was giving, when Jared Leto carried his own head onto like the Met Gala. It was that realistic. It was so scary. I mean, every single one of them pulled it out. Even CM, who I thought didn't give the best out of everything, was still kind of good. Like the head just fell off a little bit, but it was such a good execution. So this episode was actually really fun. Really, really fun. Now, there were Filipino jabs given on the Runway. I loved when CM came out and they were like, Budang ina.
Budang ina.
Which if you're not Filipino and if you have Filipino friends, you know what putang ina is. So they were just like budang ina, which I hope Buddhists don't mind. And then another one was Langit, Lupa, Impierno.
Langit, lupa, in furnace, in. in fairness.
But yeah, so that's actually a chant in a game in the Philippines. Langit, lupa, impierno. Langit is heaven, lupa is earth, and impierno is hell. And that's basically a game. It's tag. It's basically tag, but you're only allowed to tag people on the ground, like on earth. So if someone's higher up, like if they're on the top of the staircase, or they went up a chair, or they're now standing on top of like a table or whatever, they're in heaven. So you as you're in hell. You can't tag them because they're in heaven. You can only chase people who are on earth. I feel like that might be a mini challenge in the next few seasons. I don't know. But I loved playing that game as a kid. So now we go to the judges' decisions. Well, Mama Pau's decisions. And we see that on top was Arizona Brandy and Brigading. And the bottom queens this week were Kitty Space and Bernie, which I'm actually a little shocked that Kitty's in the bottom. Maybe for the story, they put her there. But was she the best? No. Was she great at lip syncing in the Rusical, which is an important part of the Rusical? No. But I feel like aside from the lip syncing, I felt like she moved well. The energy was great. So I thought that maybe CM could have been in the bottom. I don't know. It was really, putting Kitty in the bottom was weird for me, especially because I do think she also had one of the better runways. But yes, those were the results. And I'm sure that a lot of you are going to have a field day talking about these results online. Having said that, these are all really amazing queens. And the funny moment for this episode was the judges, while the queens were deliberating, chose to winnow some rice. Now in the Philippines, and I'm not sure if like the other Asian countries also love rice, do this, but in the Philippines, we have this thing called pagtatahip. So that's the act of winnowing rice, putting them in that container, which we call bilao. Just Google bilao. You know what that looks like. They were using it to winnow the rice. So that whole act of winnowing the rice is called pagtatahip. And it's a process that a lot of Filipinos do to rice before cooking it, just to make sure that it's the cleanest it can be in terms of like not having the husks anymore. Sometimes also there would be like loose rocks, like little tiny specks of like rocks or other things, other foreign substances in the rice. And so that's a great process to make sure that it's the cleanest it can be before we go ahead and saing it. Saing is, of course, the process of cooking rice in Tagalog. But now let's go back to the queens. And I'm so happy we finally somehow got one-on-ones with the winning queens and the bottom queens, because I feel like those conversations are really, really important. And Kitty did talk about like her passion for being in the competition as the reason why she should stay, which I think was a missed opportunity, because last week I was talking about like, don't tug at their heartstrings, just tell them what you're capable of, tell them what you did in the challenge. And I felt like Kitty, in a certain sense, did better than Bernie in the challenge. And she could have just pulled that card. I was like, I have a better track record. I was on top last week. Plus, I think this challenge I did better than Bernie. She could have said that. What sucks though is Bernie, I feel like Bernie going home this week would have been too early because she's such a talented queen, but she is in this situation. She said she can definitely show more. Now, I know that we're talking about track record, but it's not like Bernie's track record this season is super bad. It's just a little bit less than Kitty's because she's never been on top, but she was safe the entire time. And I thought like the first few challenges, she was acing them anyway. So this, I feel like for Brigading and Arizona, I think they genuinely felt like this was a really tough call. Aside from the fact that it was a Filipino friend on the line, it was two queens with very, very close performances in terms of track record. Although one interesting thing that I think Bernie said, because like she was asked, who's your final four?
Sino nakikita mo sa top 4?
Vinyas, you, me, and Ari.
Oh, so you're leaving Kiana out. So within the Filipino girls, is there an internal alliance going on? But yes, throughout the upcoming episodes, I hope they go ahead and do the one-on-ones because those are really important conversations. So now we go to the lip sync, and I was obsessed with the song. I grew up on this song, y'all. Like, I love Cartoon Heroes by Aqua. I'm so glad that they picked that song for the lip sync this week. When they announced the song, I was already so sure that Arizona was going to win the lip sync just because we know that she's the campy performance queen, and that song gives that vibe already. Arizona had the idea of like putting the mustache on for all the male parts and then putting it up again. It was just such a great Arizona brandy brand type of performance. Like she was amazing. She was amazing. And not that Brigading did bad. Brigading was bringing something. I just felt like it was so not for the song. So it was actually a fun lip sync to watch. The judges were clearly very entertained. And in the end, we did have Arizona Brandy as the winner. And at this point, she reveals that she picked Kitty's lipstick for her to get the karate chop, which when she did that, my mouth was on the floor because I know that she's really good sisters with Bernie, but I was like, you know what? She's probably going to go by track record. I know that she thought about it, but I was really shocked. So yeah, unfortunately, Kitty Space was sent home this episode. It's sad because Kitty Space I feel like did have so much to give, but also maybe sending Bernie home was going to be sad anyway. But all the best to Kitty Space. I'm so glad that she got to show more of herself on a Drag Race season. And I can't wait to see her more because I'm sure we will. She's probably going to tour around the Philippines and the world because of this. So we are all looking forward to that. That was a very interesting Slaysian Royale episode. But let me know what you guys think. Did you love the story? Did you love the drama? Did you love the Rusical? Let us know in the comments below. But right now, I'm also reminding all of you that if you don't want to miss any of our episodes, because we will be recapping and Dragsplaining the next episode, of course, like and subscribe to SISNE Pop because this is a channel where we explain the Filipino references on the episodes of Drag Race Philippines, Slaysian Royale, plus many other events in Filipino pop culture. So again, like and subscribe and join me again next week when we recap the brand new episode of Slaysian Royale. So my name is Momo and don't forget to follow us and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.